Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out, each and every day, it expands our base. Donald Trump scored a major victory. Judge Stephanie Haynes of the U.S. District Court for Western Pennsylvania, who has served on that court since nominated by Trump in 2019, has approved the idea of Donald Trump using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This is the first court ruling in this matter that Donald Trump has won. Other courts in New York, Colorado, and Texas have ruled against him. But it puts front and center the question of presidential power. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which we have discussed at great length, has only been invoked 4 times since 1798. It was invoked twice during the Civil War by Abraham Lincoln. It was invoked once by Franklin Roosevelt on the roundup of the Japanese following the Pearl Harbor attack. And, of course, Donald Trump is now invoking it to deal with what he calls an invasion of the United States. Now, this case is an important one, and ultimately, with this ruling by Judge Haynes, this case will go to the United States Supreme Court. And when it goes to the Supreme Court, it will be a decisive moment for Donald Trump and the Trump administration policy on immigration. Are we facing, or have we faced, an invasion? It's a real question. I would suggest we have not been invaded. There is no foreign power which has invaded us, but I think it is important to note that Donald Trump is using this extraordinary action in order to achieve his broader goal of immigration reform. Now, please note when I say this, that it means that ultimately this case will end up before the United States Supreme Court. And we know that is going to happen sooner rather than later. At least I believe that's what's going to happen. And then it will boil down to 2 justices on the court, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, and Amy Coney Barrett. Will they side with the Trump position or oppose it? And we don't know. But what we do know is that the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is now front and center in the thinking that we must all do about the powers of a president. This is a critical moment in our political history and our judicial history, and all we can do now is wait and see when the Supreme Court will act and how it will act. There is another issue which I want to raise with you now, and that is a statement by Liza Minnelli. Yes, the actress, Liza Minnelli. She has spoken out against the Kennedy Center cancellation of its LGBTQ pride events, and according to the story by Zarin Ershad, she's fuming. The award-winning entertainer issued a statement in solidarity with longtime collaborator Michael Feinstein, whose pride program at the institution, the Kennedy Center, was abruptly and unceremoniously canceled. And this is what Liza Minnelli said. Earlier this week, my dear friend in the world, Michael Feinstein, sounded a clarion call about what may only be defined as a bigoted attack on the arts. That's simple. Do you understand? It is a multi-front discussion that is going on now about what Donald Trump is doing. But I want to relay to you a discussion which I had with someone for whom I have a very high regard. His comment to me had to do with whether or not Trump is doing the right thing or not. And the observation was, we can't decide in 100 days. We have to wait at least 6 months to determine what Donald Trump is doing. I raised all the ethical questions surrounding the deal on a plane from Qatar. I pointed out the number of Republicans who now oppose that opportunity, what Donald Trump calls an opportunity, and I pointed out a variety of other issues involving what I think are the negatives of Donald Trump. And the response was, but wait, he is succeeding on a number of levels. Certainly, the effort he is making in the Middle East now to broaden the Abraham Accords is a good thing. Certainly, trying to include Syria in that effort, really a remarkable moment. And he went on to say, I'm willing to give Donald Trump a chance. I countered with this observation. I worked for Richard Nixon. Nixon opened the door to China. Nixon originated the concept of détente. Nixon waged a war against cancer, which changed the lives of millions of Americans. Richard Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. Richard Nixon, on balance, did many good things when he was president of the United States. But the cover-up involving Watergate was his undoing. Because the one thing that he did that could be identified clearly as hurting America, well, that's when Republicans in Congress turned against Nixon and said, enough is enough. The question I am posing is, if you do all the right things on a certain level and you do wrong things on another level, should you be excused for the things you've done wrong? And my answer very clearly to this particular individual was no. No, you have to be held accountable. And Donald Trump should be held accountable in my judgment. That accountability, when it comes to the Kennedy Center, well, there's little we can do because he has the power as president to act. But on the question, the critical question of national security and the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, well, the Supreme Court has the right to weigh in. And if the Supreme Court says that Donald Trump exceeded his authority, what then? And what about the Emoluments Act, that part of the Constitution which says that a president cannot accept gifts of the kind that Donald Trump is suggesting he can claim? If a president is in violation of the Constitution, what do you do then? And when a president and his administration clearly attack the right of habeas corpus enshrined in the Constitution, does that outweigh whatever good a president might do? I posed these questions to my very good friend, and his answer was, give it 6 months. Let's see where we are. Yes, let's see where we are in 6 months. But I shudder at the thought, given Donald Trump's record, of where we might be. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, you can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or send me an email. And I do hear from many of you, and for that, I am grateful. And now, my special appreciation to Gogo Ziegler, who is the producer of this podcast. We do our best every day to comment on the news in an effective, appropriate, and we hope interesting fashion. This is John Rothman. You are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman, and I will be back right here tomorrow. See you then.